Good morning. My name is Maurice Crespi. I'm the managing partner of Schindler's Attorneys. Schindler's Attorneys is a co-founder of COBRA together with IQ Business and Engaged Business Turnaround. We now have over 40 partners who are assisting wherever they can. The partners have pledged to assist on a pro bono basis for companies in distress who are unable to afford their own professional services to assist them, legal services, accounting services, and the like. We even have funding partners. The idea behind COBRA is that we provide the pro bono assistance in various forms. We have a fantastic and the best knowledge base in the country that's been put together. You'll find that on the COBRA website. That's www.cobra.org.za. Or set up Zoom meetings with us if you have any specific questions for you and your team. If you want us to deal with your employees, again on a pro bono basis, to assist in any restructuring, we also have experts with that. The idea behind COBRA is that we do not, it's not about business rescue. We do not intend to put you in business rescue. In fact, the intention behind COBRA is to avoid a business rescue. And we've successfully been doing that in the majority of cases. And we find that it's only in limited cases where the creditors are being unreasonable that business rescue has been necessary. We have a team of mediators who deal with creditors. And in fact, what we do is we ask that creditors in turn join COBRA so that we can assist them with their creditors. As part of the pro bono service, we have these webinars. We've got a very, very exciting webinar today. It's Energy Wisdom, a tool for business owners. It's being presented by the father and son team, Colin and Steve Hall. Colin has had one hell of a career, 60 years career in the corporate world. When Steve, his son, was 9 years old, they were playing a game of Monopoly. He taught his father the most valuable lesson Colin ever learned. For the past 25 years, they've been sharing that wisdom together in a unique learning experience with over 70,000 fellow travelers, all seeking a more joyful way to live their lives as a game and not a war. The focus on only two words: human energy. And in an hour, they will convince you that it's the most precious asset you have when it is high, and your biggest liability if it's low, or worse, still negative. They use the metaphor of your motor car battery to make it simple. When your car's battery is fully charged, you can head to the hills without a care. But if it's flat, you can't drive out of the garage. You are stuck. The current COVID crisis has created flat batteries for most of us. Please set aside the hour. Please join this webinar. And importantly, please ask questions. This is a webinar. The idea is that you ask questions. Otherwise, we could just pre-record these and play them. So please ask questions. I'd like to welcome the YouTube audience and the Facebook audience. If you guys want to ask questions, please go to COBRA, join the link and register and hop on board. So I'm going to hand over to the Hall father and son team. Before I do, I'd like to introduce my panelists. The other panelists, I have Ian Fleming from Engaged Business Turnaround. I have Emma Marseille from IQ Business, Gary Barachovitz from Schindler's Attorneys, Tasneem from Schindler's Attorneys, and Renee from IQ Business. So I'm going to hand over to you, Stephen.
Maurice, thank you very, very much. It's a great privilege to be with you this morning, and welcome to all the viewers on Facebook and on YouTube. How exciting that is to be part of a broader stream. I'm excited about this title today. It's Energy Wisdom. My daughter, when she was 6 years old, she came back to me from school and she asked me a question. She said, "Dad, what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom?" Of course, I was stuck. I get that academic pain behind my eye when you asked a question by a 6-year-old. And I didn't know the answer. And for a while, she let me sweat until she said with a sparkle in her eye, she said, "Dad, don't worry. I know the answer." I said, "Wow, fantastic. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom?" She said, "Well, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you mustn't put that tomato into a fruit salad. And from then on, it changed my picture about knowledge and wisdom. I think it was Einstein who said that knowledge is having the right answers. And what a time we're in now to explore answers. I mean, we are getting answers from everybody. Experts in virology, fake news have got answers. Everybody's got answers. We're exploring new answers. How long is this thing going to last? How are we going to get through this? What do we do with our employees? How do we get engagement? When can we go back to work? We're trying to find answers. Knowledge is having the right answers. But Einstein reminds us that wisdom is asking the right questions. And so to Maurice's point, if you have questions, please pop them up in the chat group. We would love to be able to address them towards the end of our time together and into the future. Knowledge is having the right answers, but wisdom is having, or at least asking, the right questions. I think it was the poet Rainer Maria Rilke who reminds us that we should live our questions today, and then someday, maybe far into the future, without even realizing it, we will live ourselves into our own answers. We will live ourselves into our own answers. And I think that everybody here today in this webinar will live themselves into their own answers. And as a country in South Africa, our answer will be different, potentially, to the answers and other answers around the world. But live our questions today. And then someday, maybe far into the future, we will live ourselves into our own answers. So please keep the questions coming. Maurice will pop in every now and then, maybe with one of them, and we will have some time towards the end to address that. I grew up in a completely different country. I was born in 1969, and until 1994, I lived in what was called the old South Africa. That was 25 years. I'm now 50. Which means I've spent exactly half my life in what might be called the new South Africa, which has also been 25 years. I knew how to greet in two ways. I could greet you in English by saying good morning, and if I was politically correct in the old South Africa, I would also say goeiemorgen. Those were the only two ways I could greet. I had the most wonderful opportunity to work and to travel in China in 1995, long before COVID, 1995. And I worked for an interesting business there, which had a captivating name. It was called I Will Not Complain. What a time to be thinking back 25 years ago to the title of a business. Wouldn't it be interesting if we rebranded some of our businesses today with the same branding, I Will Not Complain? It's very difficult to ask for a salary increase, that I can promise you. But we used to run expeditions. We ran expeditions into Mongolia. We ran expeditions along the Great Wall of China, and delegates had to sign a form saying, I will not complain. It changed the attitude, and it changed how people dealt with difficult circumstances. But far more important than any of that was that for the first time in my life, I learned a new greeting. I learned a Hindi greeting in the foothills of the Himalayas, in the country of Nepal, which is namaste. And what I learned in that greeting is that people stopped to greet. And the essence of the greeting meant that the divine light in me sees or acknowledges the divine light in you. I noticed that people stopped and bowed, and in fact, they made a hand gesture, and that the bringing together of the 5 fingers was symbolic of the bringing together of the 5 senses in the greeting. So that when I greet, I try to greet with all of my senses. I try to be fully present in the moment of the greeting. Now, I thought that that was a unique greeting. And then I was reminded many times that most of our sub-Saharan languages have a very similar context to the greeting. That Sanibonani, by definition, means I see you. And therefore, if I see you, I have to stop and acknowledge your presence along my journey. And of course, when we have a greeting, the next possibility even through a webinar or online training or virtual reality, is that we can have conversations. And we are really privileged to be having this conversation around energy wisdom for business owners today. We can't have conversations if we don't start with a simple greeting. And so you might like to pop your own greeting into the chat room if you are one of the attendees. Please do. And maybe there's a language there or a greeting that's very special to you as to how you might like to start conversations. Of course, when we have a series of conversations, as you are doing through COBRA, we start the capacity to build relationships. And if there's anything that's going to help us pull through this current crisis, I think it's going to be relationships, the health of our relationships. But more on that shortly. There's a beautiful Tswana greeting, which is, of course, dumelang, but then often followed by a question, which is legai. And what I've learned is that legai means, where are you? Where are you? And the response, if it's kiteng, means I am here, I am present. And so we are here with you for this time on this webinar, and we look forward greatly to sharing some thoughts around energy with you this morning. Dad, over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and namaste to you all. I greet you with the same joy in knowing that we're present. We might not be able to see each other too easily, but we feel. My story is about that Monopoly game because it changed my life, and it was strange to be taught by a 9-year-old. At that stage in my career, I was the main board director of SA Breweries. SA Breweries was a monopoly, was the biggest industrial company in South Africa, and I thought I was the king. I went home one evening and Stephen said, "Hey, Dad, let's have a game." And it was raining, so he couldn't play outside. And of all stupid things, he chose Monopoly. My game. I was a world champion at making people do what I wanted them to do. I have to tell you, and I never feel comfortable about telling you this, I didn't intend to beat him. I intended to thrash him. Because my only understanding of the way the world worked was you don't beat people, you thrash them. Then you know you've won. So in order to thrash him, I changed the rules, and that's called cheating. To cut a long story short, I thrashed him. He didn't understand how, but I just knew a better game to play, a better way to play it. And so at the end, he had to pack the game up, and I have a vivid picture of him shaking his head and trying to work out how he could have lost to a charming person like his dad, who played it so gently and so nicely, but so crookedly. And then after a few minutes of thinking, he turned to me and he looked me straight in the eye and he said to me, "Dad, isn't this a game?" And I was sick into the toilet at the horror of playing a game with him that was about war. He didn't say about war. He just said, "Dad, isn't this a game?" And what I thought was, life isn't about a war. Life is a game. So I resigned from my job and I went out into the big wide world and I went looking for a way of playing my life as if it was a game. And that's what we want to share with you. How can you play your life better as if it was a game and not a war? Over to you, Steve.
Excellent. So sit back and relax and think around some ideas that we would love to share with you about this process. Think of maybe your dream motor car. I don't know, it's a strange time to think of motor cars. We're doing a lot more walking perhaps now than we ever used to do. And maybe we can't afford cars at this stage, but just dream for a little bit about what your absolute dream motor car might be. My son is 14 years old, and so for him it's easy. That's the one. I mean, he's got no idea about cost and value, but that's his dream car. He said that's one day he would like to drive that car for all its magnificence, its technology, its braking power, its acceleration, its torque, its aerodynamics, its research and development. So you put your own price tag on that vehicle. 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, doesn't matter. Think about exchange rates, whatever it is, you've got a price tag. That's your dream car. That's cool. You don't have to say what it is. But maybe you live in the Cape and you enjoy the outdoors, and to cruise along the camp space strip there on a magnificent day is to take it all in. And so it's convertible and free flow and open air and freedom. Maybe that's your dream vehicle, but it could be that you're just dying to get to the bush. You're dying to get outdoors. You cannot wait to pack some camping gear, get out of the city, take some time away from this COVID grind, and get away and breathe real fresh air far away on a 4x4 trail. If you are like my current 17-year-old daughter, then that's the vehicle for you. It's probably only going to make it from Port Elizabeth to St. Francis Bay, about 90 kilometers. But it's going to have fun along the way. It'll break down 3 times, but you'll have surfboards and fun and good music. The point is, it really doesn't matter. Whatever the vehicle is, whatever the vehicle of your business looks like, whatever the vehicle of you looks like, whether it's worth 5 million or 5,000, if you have a 4-year-old at home who loves to jump into the car with you when you get home and plays around and sees the dashboard and turns on the lights and the radio and the windscreen wipers and the jets of water that shoot and opens the door and the light comes on, if you don't check your car, at the end of the day, what's happened is that the battery may have run down. And so the very simple analogy that Maurice introduced us with is that for 1,000 Rand battery, maybe it's 2,000 Rand battery, it can hold 1 million Rands worth of motor car to ransom. That the vehicle can be worth 2 million, 3 million, 4 million Rand, but if the battery's flat, it is useless. It stays in the garage. And so we looked at this in human dynamics and researched for 25 years around this thing called human energy. That often we find people that have 30 years of business experience. They have degrees and diplomas and networks, they've got products, they've got services, but for some reason, the battery's flat. And when the battery's flat, all those things are difficult to get going. We have the skills, we have the networks, often we have the products, we have the capabilities, but if our battery's flat, they quite literally stay in the garage. Now, for the South African audience, we only have to look at 2 teams, sadly and happily, joyfully and triumphantly, but also sadly on the other side. And what happens when we get to a World Cup in rugby? There's something that happens to the battery. I'm not sure what it is, but we never lose a World Cup final. We never do. We haven't lost one. And by the way, we should go back to the 1937 Springboks to know that we've actually got 4 world titles before the World Cup ever came about. But there was an energy there, and we didn't always go in as the best team on paper. Very rarely, in fact, were we the favorites. We had the skills, but the skills weren't the things that were the differentiator. It was something in the battery, something in the energy. And then sadly, we look at our cricket team. And often we go into a tournament as the favorites. We've got the skills, we've got the capabilities, we've got the #1 ranking in the world. And then something happens to the battery. And we end up never making a final. So the extremes are there for us to witness. And whether this is sports, or whether it's cooking, or whether it's playing golf, or whether it's sleeping well, or whether it's running or walking, it seems to be, what is the state of our battery? And so let's just take you on a bit of a journey around this. One of our favorite quotes comes from a man called Oscar Wilde. He said that to live is the rarest thing in the world. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people just exist. That is all. And he makes a fundamental difference between living fully and just existing. And so on the one side, we've got this journey of ups and downs called life. We can call that a journey of effectiveness, where we have good days and we have bad days. And for so many, these are bad days, but good days will return, and we've had good days before. It's a journey maybe of ups and downs. And to quote Oscar Wilde, that's potentially a journey of just existing. We're just getting through. We've just got enough battery power to get us through to 5 o'clock at the end of the day. Just existing might mean I will get through to Friday and then I will live. Boy, you'll see me on the weekend. I will live fully, but till Friday, I will just exist. What happens though is, of course, if we have a spark in our battery, if our battery's charged, we love what we do maybe, or we're looking forward to that meeting, or we're really engaged in the project that we're doing, or we are assisting businesses to get back to their former glory. And we've got that spark in our battery through purpose, through relationships, whatever it might be. And we'll share some more ideas there. The minute I've got a charge in my battery, my vehicle can go to some wonderful places. They can go to Cape Town, it can drive to Botswana, we can go down to the Eastern Cape, to St. Francis Bay. And then again, to quote Oscar Wilde, maybe that journey is when we are living a little more fully. We are fully alive. Of course, though, in the world of reality, we know that sometimes there's a drain on our battery. And I think globally, we are feeling this in many different ways. There's this drain on our battery. And our energy may turn negative, which means that our trajectory may be spiraling down a little. There's a magnificent quote from Morgan Freeman in the movie Shawshank Redemption, where he reminds Tim Robbins. He says, "Son, if you ain't busy living, then you're sure busy dying." And I don't mean dying physically, but we're dying, that we are not enjoying where we are. We're feeling our batteries are drained. It's hard work, it's a grind. And so we have options on any of these three journeys, and very often it's dependent on the state of our battery. And so to a large degree, I suppose point one for today is that when our energy is high, we perform better. Yes, we need skills training, absolutely. We need to know about balance sheets, and we need to know about finances, and we need to know about corporate governance, but we do all those things better when we've got a spark in our battery. It's tough though. Global numbers. Here's some research from both Towers Watson and Gallup, and they conduct employee engagement surveys around the world. And the latest figures, this is before COVID, so I suspect that they may be under pressure, state that only 13% of global employees feel as though they are fully alive. It means that if our dream motor car has 8 cylinders, only one of them is firing at full capacity. And that's not enough to get us out of our driveways. Global statistics state that 54% are what's called enrolled. Enrolled means they're kind of just existing. They're enrolled, but don't ask them to do anything more. It's not my job. I'm not paid to be on the committee. I'm not paid to help a new recruit. I'm not paid to go and offer my services to people in trouble. I will do and tick off my KPIs. And that's it. Don't ask me. And at 4 o'clock, I'm out of here. I've checked out. We often say that when we're in that state, we arrive at work with our left brain, because otherwise we wouldn't get there. We would need a left brain to know where we work, and a sandwich. But other than that, don't ask me to do anything else, because it's not part of my job. And what a privilege it is to be sharing ideas with people in the 13%, because what you're doing is you are helping others to charge their batteries. Of course, that means, if our maths is correct, that 33% feel as though they are functionally disengaged. And so please don't feel alone. That's a point, is that this thing called energy is absolutely universal. We're not facing a South African issue here. We are facing a global challenge. The exciting thing, the upside, is to imagine what would happen if we just move the dial a little. Let's be honest, we're not going to get 100% fully alive engagement all the time. Somebody's always got a sick child. Somebody's always feeling low. Someone's read a piece of fake news, and our batteries are drained as a result. But because energy is exponential, a little change can go a long way. And so if we move the dial a little bit, then we can find that energy becomes exponential. It feeds off each other, and it is virally infectious. Last couple of points before I hand back over to Colin. Energy is virally infectious. My energy, just like COVID, affects you, and your energy affects me. And even on a webinar, when we start seeing the questions, when we start getting the engagement, when we read a greeting from a different place, it will affect our energy, even in text. And we try to sum that up in very, very simple dynamics. That on the one side, we've got what we might call energy adders. They, the people, when you pick up the phone, you really want to speak to them. For whatever reason, they bring a smile to your face, and we draw them the simple smile. They're prepared to, they just add energy for whatever reason. They could be 2 or 102. Of course, the reality is that sometimes we have what we might call energy subtractors. People that, well, for whatever reason, they prefer not to speak to them today. We'll get back to them tomorrow, or for heaven's sake, not over the weekend, on Monday maybe, if we're lucky. Now, it's not good or bad. It's not that there's good and bad. It's potentially what is the energy flow between us. Maybe they really are good people. We just don't know them. We've just never met them. We've never sat down. We've never greeted them. And maybe we've never listened. Of course, in an exponential world, and simple mathematics will tell us that maybe there are also people who multiply energy. They don't just add, but they really multiply. And often they do that because they listen. And so to them, we add that wonderful, healthy set of ears that you might see there on the diagram. We might meet with them. They don't often say much, but we leave with charged batteries because we really felt listened to. Apparently in neuroscience, people are telling us that the act of being listened to, is so close to that of being loved that the brain cannot tell the difference. And so when we are really listened to, it almost feels as though we are loved, and the brain cannot tell the difference. Of course, in our organizations, we may find that there are also people that don't just subtract energy. They may even be dividing it. And that's a real challenge for us. How do we enable them to move with their own energy into far healthier relationships? Of course, the big question really is, what is the face that I am bringing? What do I look like when I engage with my colleagues? What do I look like when I get home from 4 Zoom meetings and 2 Microsoft Teams meetings and a webinar, and I come home? Am I adding energy to the family, or maybe I might be subtracting? And so this awareness of energy, and firstly, that it's absolutely fundamental to our performance. And secondly, it is virally infectious. And so before we go into some more ideas about how, we're going to just put up some very simple language that when my energy spirals up, it is usually because I've been communicated with well, I've got good information, solid, reliable information, and a level of trust. And when we put good information together with a level of trust, it seems as though we get positive energy. And we're going to just call that playing blue. Just for a simple language. Of course, the opposite is that when I see misinformation, or hidden information, or information with an agenda, or in today's world, fake news, it drives me crazy. Because I start to distrust the system. I start to distrust the medical professionals. And then my energy spirals down. And we're just going to call that playing red. And so there's some simple language just to position some of our next thoughts. And back over to you, Dad.
Gee, that was well done, Steve. Couldn't have done it myself, and I thought I was a good teacher. The why is important, and it's actually very simple, although neuroscientists will tell you it's very complicated. But very, very simply, when your energy is high, when you're positive, your brain works better. There are chemicals in your brain, there's a process in your brain that's responsive to energy. That when your energy goes up, the chemicals work beautifully. And when your energy goes down, your brain stops thinking. So the first obvious thing is that your brain doesn't work as well when you're red. Your brain works much better when you're blue. And for a long time, we stopped at the level of the brain. But in January, I got a piece of information that said that I had malignant lymphoma. That means cancer of the lymphoma, and that means that the cells in my body have got to fight. And I believed sufficiently in the magic of energy, the magic of a full battery, to believe that my role was not to be an oncologist or to do anything other than to make my battery fully charged every day. So for 6 treatments spread over 18 weeks, I made it my business to keep my battery charged. And I'm delighted to tell you that my white cells are as responsive to energy as are my brain cells. And so I came out of that treatment all clear after 6 treatments. And what it taught me was that the whole body responds to energy. When your energy is negative, when you're playing red, your body suffers. Every cell in your body says, what the hell are you doing? Why are you living like this? And then have to battle to keep you going. So the why is very simple. The why is that you affect other people and you affect your body. That's the why. Let's move on, Steve. But now what comes after why is always how. How do we do it? How do you keep positive? So that's what we want to share with you.
So there's a great story. It's an apocryphal story about a hippopotamus living in the Mara River between Kenya, Tanzania, and East Africa. And the hippo looks up out of its mud and its reeds and its dirty water, and it looks up and it sees this extraordinarily beautiful butterfly. The butterfly is flitting around on a summer breeze and it's sipping nectar from flower to flower. Photographers are going mad. They're taking magnificent pictures of this butterfly and getting up close. And the hippo looks at this and says, right, that's it. I'm going to change. I don't want to be this fat, ugly hippopotamus living in this muddy river, eating weeds all day. I would like to be able to be like that butterfly. And so it goes to all the top consultancy houses around the world. And they say, well, it's quite simple. You just have to grow a pair of wings and fly. And he says, well, that's amazing. Then I can move out of this river, this ugly, muddy river, and eat weeds, and move into this beautiful sort of world of the butterfly sipping nectar. And they say, absolutely. Here's the bill for $30 million. So this is, and he says, well, how? How do I do that? How do I just grow wings and fly? He said, well, sorry, but we are strategy consultants. We're not implementation experts. And so there's the sense that how do we do this? Because it's great to say keep your energy charged, keep your battery charged, but really the journey lies in the how. And so we're going to share three thoughts and 4 tools. And the tools are available to all of you who registered onto the webinar. And we're going to make sure that they are also available in some way to those of you streaming in from Facebook as well as YouTube. The 3 thoughts, and each of these are personal, saying, well, where do I go to top up my battery? If my battery's running down and I'm driving a Tesla motor car, I've got to go somewhere and get a charge, right? So then I can go off on the next 300 or 400 kilometers, and then I need to charge that battery. So from a human perspective, where do we go to charge our battery? Well, one of the first places is this enigma called balance. Now, we can't say what your balance should be. All we can say after a number of years of research is that when our balance is out, our battery runs down. Now, that could be physical. If I've got a bad knee or a bad back, my energy is affected and I must fix that. And then my energy is restored. If I'm feeling sick for 3 or 4 days, I'm out of balance, my energy goes down in my body. Could be, though, out of balance financially. And that has a drain on our energy. And maybe we're out of balance in a relationship. And therefore, it affects our balance. Balance is personal. And whether that means I need to do a little bit more walking, or a little bit more reading, or a little bit more time with my children, or a little bit more of this or that, I need to try and find some balance. And some of the tools we'll share with you will be journeys as to how you might do that. But remember, the wisdom of Einstein is it's often about asking the right questions, because your answers will be different to mine. Some people love golf. Others say, if you make me play golf, it'll drain my battery. And so there isn't a recipe. It's a journey that we're going to hopefully help you with. The second thought, a place where we go to really charge our batteries, as we've mentioned, is in our authentic relationships. You know, how often do we just have one great phone call with a good mate, or a house party meeting with a few people that we haven't seen during lockdown, or even a WhatsApp call from somebody that really lifts our energy. It's that smiling adder or multiplier. And we're going to share some ideas in those tools about how we might go about thinking around our authentic relationships. Who are those that really add and multiply my energy? And how might I invest a little bit more time with them? We know we can't cut out all those that subtract and divide. But through the tools that we're going to share, we know that you'll find ways in terms of the how around relationships. The third thought is around belonging. That when I feel I belong to a community, to a family, a country, maybe a company, a school that has worthy purpose, my energy goes up. There's a charge in my battery. I enjoy spending time there. It has a worthy purpose for me. And I leave with more energy in my battery than what I maybe have arrived. And so with that in mind, the very first tool, and this is available to all the attendees right within almost immediate effect, is what we call the personal energy journey. This is a longer journey than a webinar. It works out to around about 4 hours of total time. But our suggestion is to take a few months over that. It is a series of video clips. The videos themselves are usually between 2 and 4 or 5 minutes, and then some questions maybe that allow you to engage with it at your own pace. It is full of stories, it's full of anecdotes, it's full of case studies, it's full of thoughts that might trigger your ideas. And the only thing we would suggest as you go through that is to make sure you've got some form of journal with you, to write down your own thoughts, to press pause, to come back to it in a few days' time, to watch the next video, and then to keep your notes going as you move through at your own time. So that'll be available to you. It's a series of videos, and it's called the Personal Energy Journey. Dad, do you want to talk about the next one?
Yeah, I just want to say that personal energy journey is the next best thing we could do after having you join us for 4 hours and continue this learning process, the wisdom journey. So it's easy, it's fun, and it's quite real value. Then we decided that we needed to have something a little faster, because if you go down into the garage and your battery is flat, that's not a time to do a 4-hour process spread over months. What you need then is a spark. What you need is something that sparks your battery that now, then, and so you can go out and do the things you want to do. So we developed a very simple little process called a 10-minute battery charger. And it requires that you spend, again, a little bit of time with a journal or a diary on your own. And just think about things that are important in your life and things that are important around you, and get a charge to your battery. I do it every morning, and I'm having lots of fun with it. And we now tested it and find that it works for other people. So there it is. It's called the 10-minute battery charger. It'll be on its way to you. We'll explain to you how to use it, and try it, see how it goes. So now we want to move over to 2 more. And the first one is called Peoples. Peoples is a book I wrote, Stephen's daughter Hannah, when she was 4. Funny to write a book for a 4-year-old. And very, very simply, what it does is it distinguishes or describes red behavior and blue behavior in simple language. When we behave red, we create negative energy all around us, in ourselves, in our brains, in our body cells. When we play blue, we create a very different kind of energy. And so it's a language. It's a simple language for people to use to describe the difference between high energy behavior and low energy behavior. We've digitalized it so you can turn the pages on the screen and share it with children. But believe me, there's a lesson there for adults as well. It takes about 10 or 11 minutes, so it's not much, but try it and share it. Over to you, Steve, for your stories.
Thank you. The last of the 4 gifts. So there's the personal energy journey, the longer 4-hour version, the battery chargers, which are 10-minute processes that give you a spark, the book called Peoples. And the last of them is a series of stories on a website that you will be that we will share with you called Stories for Humanity. It's www.storiesforhumanity.wixsite.com/Steve Hall. And these are stories that I started to put together from day one of lockdown. They were an attempt to get my own energy up, to remind myself of extraordinary people and amazing lessons that I've learned over 50 years along my journey of leadership development. And each of them are between 4 and 5 minutes long, and they're really just a reflection, a story of somebody that has lived with great balance, maybe, or a story of somebody that's lived with great purpose, or a story about an authentic relationship, or a story of somebody in really difficult and trying circumstances who have created a sense of belonging. And that's full of possibilities, and they're perfect for an early morning cup of coffee as you're getting into your day, that you can log into any one of them as a little reflection, I guess, for the day. Each of them are stories about people and all stories about humanity. And so those will also be available for you as the 4 tools. Dad, I think we're going to start wrapping up soon, but I'd like you to talk a bit about the impact of COVID and then where to from here.
Yeah, I think COVID has precipitated something that was coming anyway. It's rather more dramatic than any of us anticipated. But I think there are 3 things. The first is that it has made it clear that your battery is your battery. It's not your boss's battery. It's not about the company's battery. It's not about going on team builds and having happy birthday parties at the office to charge your battery, to make you happy, to motivate you. It's not about expecting the world to care for you. It won't. You have to look after your battery. You have to learn how to charge it. You have to learn how to keep it charged. And not only have you got to do that, but you have to do that for the people who love you, depend on you. So whereas we used to say, oh, well, I've got a job, I work at such and such, they look after me. No, they will if they can, but they won't if they can't. And lots of them won't. So you guys are all going to have difficulty with the relationships that used to look after batteries, that used to keep them charged. You used to keep people motivated. Now they're going to have to look after themselves. So the sooner people take that responsibility and learn how to do it and get joyful out of the days that they charge, the better. That's point 1. Point 2, I think that the old theory of we spend so many hours at work and so many hours at home is gone. We're going to have to integrate that. We're going to have to decide how I am going to integrate the work that I do at home with the work that I do at the office, and how I'm going to become sensitive to other people integrating. Because if I'm doing my work at the dining room table and my matric daughter is also working at the dining room table, and my grandson is also working around the table doing his coloring in, then I'm not going to be so easy to work with as I would be if I was sitting in my office. So you're going to have to look after the integration between living at home and living at work. And I think the third thing is that I think Stephen alluded to, it's not just about physical wellness. It's about wholeness. It's about It's about being the full person that you can be. It's about being fit, yes. It's about being alive mentally, yes. It's about being emotionally mature, yes. And it's being spiritual too. So I think the word that's coming out stronger than wellness is wholeness. So those are the three suggestions that I make it more and more important to become conscious of the fact that your energy is crucial and that your energy comes from your battery, and your battery is absolutely at the beginning and the end of everything. So those are some trends that I think we need to be conscious of. So now we need to wrap up what we've got to say and perhaps have an opportunity to listen to what you've got to ask. So can we do that? And Steve, would you like to say a goodbye and thank you?
Yeah, so one of the amazing people that I had the privilege of working with was in KwaZulu-Natal, a man called Eric Buthelezi. And when I left KwaZulu-Natal, he said to me in Zulu, in isiZulu, he said, "Abake babonani, bayopinde babonani futi. Abake babonani, bayopinde babonani futi." And what I learned from that is it meant that those of us who have truly seen each other will surely see each other again. We've really enjoyed spending some time with you. We're looking forward to engaging with you potentially around a few questions. And of course, our details will be available to you going forward. If conversations are started by greetings, then conversations also continue because it's important to greet at the end. So conversations, greetings at the beginning, open the tap to conversations. Greetings towards the end, keep the tap of that conversation open. We're really looking forward to some more conversations with you. Thank you very, very much for having us. We've definitely got at least 10 minutes. I'm going to hand it over to Marcel. Maurice. Maurice. And I'm going to stop my screen. So Maurice, thank you very much.
That was great. Fantastic. Look, if one confuses love with listening, I must tell you, I've been listening pretty hard at the moment. I've been completely captivated. So thanks so much for that. Wow. There are some questions. There's a question. I understand the difference in energy. How do you change your energy level? Now, I think you've dealt with that, but I just want to add to it. Have you ever explored the question of mindfulness? Because your 10 minutes a day are pretty much a 10 minute of being mindful, but what you guys are doing is you're focusing the mindfulness on a particular aspect. Okay. Have you looked at that? Because there have been studies now at Harvard, at Yale University that demonstrate that those 10 minutes a day actually affects the amygdala and the limbic system. And you actually, it's scientifically proven that the 10 minutes, in fact, do indeed improve. Have you gone into that? Because it's fascinating and it's actually scientific.
Shall I answer that, Steve?
Go first, yeah.
Absolutely. What we're really trying to do in the 10-minute battery charger is mindfulness, but in a fun way, in a joyful way, not in a kind of a challenging spiritual way. But here are some ideas that you can do every day that will get you started. And once you get started, you're going to have a much better day. So the ideas like gratitudes you've built into it, about thinking about relationships, about thinking about the big universe and wondering mindfully, about looking at using your senses differently. I mean, I have a little ritual every day of eating a rusk. Now, there are two ways you can eat a rusk. The one way is to take it out of the packet and put it in the coffee and stick it in your mouth. There's another way, and that's to enjoy thinking about the whole process of how the rusk was made, where it was made, how it got there, how it got into your mouth, how your mouth works, and so on. So it is mindfulness, yes.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for the audience to realize, you said it's not spiritual, and mindfulness is not a spiritual practice. In fact, a smoke break is often a mindful moment where you reflect on something.
If you use it, yes.
Yes, if you use it. And I don't think one can reinforce more. I mean, what you are saying, as I said, is really grounded in science, and the audience needs to know that. It's something I've been doing for 3 years. I spend 10 minutes a day every morning being mindful. And it's being present. And the mindfulness can be, a lot of people think that mindfulness is not thinking, and that's not the case. You actually do think, but you're mindful and you're present. And the benefits are immeasurable. They really, really are. You also touched on other aspects which I think are important and I've picked up on, and that is community. Yale University, there's actually a course by them, the Science of Wellbeing, and they've identified and they've done studies that community, in fact, is very, very important in recharging the battery. And something which you haven't mentioned, which I asked you to touch on, what Yale also did was they looked at kindness, and that kindness is also a means to recharge that battery. Have you come across that?
Yeah, what we tried to do was to take all those things and put it into a simple, practical formula that you can do. Because there's masses you can read and follow of what's good for you, right? But the big thing is to say, I'm going to do things for myself that's good for me. That's the difference. So there's wisdom around us about everything from diet to exercise to prayer to everything. The real question is, what works for you? What charges your battery? That's what we've tried to create, a very simple process that you can adapt to charge your battery.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see if there are any further questions.
Marisa,
we have a lot of compliments.
There was a request for the fourth tool, and I think that might be the Stories for Humanity. So we'll put that up. Should I type that in while you carry on?
Yes, please do.
Hi, Stephen. It's Emma. We have posted the Stories for Humanity and the Personal Energy Journal. We just don't have the battery charger link.
Oh, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you've done it. Okay, perfect.
I have a comment. I have a comment that's been posted, and maybe you can comment on it. And that's from Emma, who says, "Amazing how the correlation between the false news and events in the world are so aligned to the playing red."
Yeah, I'd love to comment on that too, Maurice, and thank you, Emma, for that. It is a parallel, and it's just been this, I guess, extraordinary juxtaposition of emotions that most of us seem to have gone through in the last 10 weeks. It's you used to have a good day or a bad day. Now it seems like you can have a great hour and a shocking hour in the same day. And what I've noticed is when I'm triggered, it's often by a piece of news that turns out to be fake news. And it's really helped me to say, well, what do I really want to read more of? What is draining my energy? And let me try and remove myself from, as much as possible, but let's stay relevant and stay real and stay informed to a degree, but not to overreact with each and every single piece of news that's come along, because that fake news is a piece of misinformation. And as we know, when misinformation starts to multiply with distrust, it causes this negative energy, which we feed back into more misinformation and more distrust, and we spiral our energy down. And so that's just an example of one of those pieces of misinformation out there that may trigger our energy in the wrong way. And when we're mindful of that, and Maurice, absolutely, the science is unequivocal. It is unequivocal that when we practice more mindfulness, and the opposite of mindful is mindless. So when we're mindless, what happens? We jump around and we create all this extraordinary cortisol in our mind, and we fear for the future, which isn't even there. We read all the fake news, we get all fearful, and it causes huge amounts of cortisol. And cortisol is great if you're running away from a lion, but moving away or reacting fight or flight. But over time, built up levels of cortisol have a profound impact on our battery. And when we engage in mindfulness, and gratitude is another one, we are able to rewire our brain in the process of neuroplasticity through more enzymes and neurotransmitters called things like dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. And so the science is starting to really prove what we've probably all of us known all our lives. So yeah, fake news is something that triggers me, and my energy just starts to go off, dips off the edge.
Steve, I've recently learned and actually a tool that you can use to help with the fake news. It's called Stop, Challenge and Choose, from a book that I was reading, and it's a tool to use to help you separate yourself from something that will trigger you into a negative energy spiral. And you probably have heard of it, but the basis of it is that as soon as something triggers you and you realize that trigger and you notice yourself going into a negative energy spiral, your heart racing, your mind running away with you on a pathway that doesn't exist, is you stop, take a breath, and challenge your thoughts. Are you making something up or sending yourself down a road that's not necessary? And once you've challenged the thought, then choose the reaction that you have. So make a conscious decision to either react or not, or react in one way versus another way. And that helps you to deal with the fake news, because like a lot of the comments are saying, it's so hard to ignore the fake news because it's in your face all the time.
Thank you, Emma.
I concur with Emma entirely, because what she has said is in fact a form of mindfulness once again, and it's a good way to describe what mindfulness does is life. One finds that in life you're in a raging rapid, and what mindfulness does is it takes you outside, and whilst the raging rapid's there, you're mindful of it, but you disassociate yourself from the raging rapid, and you actually you do what Emma's actually suggested. You analyze it, and you analyze your feelings. You actually become mindful of what emotions are triggered as a result of it. And through the practice of actually introspecting and saying, hey, it makes me feel like this. Why does it make me feel like this? How does it make me feel like this? It just unfolds. And you begin watching life as a raging rapid, as opposed to being in life. Life being in the raging rapid. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Any other comments, guys?
Maurice, I'd like to just sort of close with a quote that just suddenly came to mind as you were talking. And I actually don't know who originally said it. I'll probably find out somewhere. But for me, it sums up a lot about what is our role right now. In any situation, as parents, as family members, as employers, as employees, it goes like this: when I reach the edge of all the light in my life, when I reach the edge of all the light in my life, and I step into the darkness beyond, I must find one of two things in place. Either there will be something firm for me to stand on, or I will have been taught how to fly. When I reach the edge of all the light in my life and I step into the darkness beyond, I must find one of two things in place. Either there will be something firm for me to stand on, or I will have been taught how to fly. And I think what you guys are doing, which is an extraordinary work, is you are providing both the platform for people to stand up again on a firm rock, a grounding, a foundation, a solid idea, but you're also helping them to grow wings with which to fly again. And those are two totally different things, but I think you're doing both of them. We hope, of course, that through the sharing of these gifts, we're also providing something firm for people to stand on called their own battery, but also teaching them how to fly with their own wings, because how you charge your battery becomes your own journey. So I hope that resonates with the work that you guys are doing, and thank you very, very much for the special outreach that you guys represent.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the kind words. That's a wrap today. Thanks so much, Stephen. Thanks so much, Colin. This is really, these webinars are diverse, and I really, really enjoyed today. We have further webinars coming up. I can just take you through them. We have Business Rescue in a Nutshell tomorrow, which takes you through the business rescue process and what COBRA is about. And we answer questions which are specific to your industry. So please join us tomorrow at 10. Then on Thursday, we have Gigi Alcock back again. Gigi Alcock will be talking on Casonomics, the Casonomics Revolution. He has written a book on the topic, and he will be discussing it with the panelists and obviously taking questions. Then on Friday morning at 10 o'clock, we have How to Best Raise Capital in the Mid-Market, Lessons to be Learned. And that's by New Capital at 10 o'clock. And then we have the 3 o'clock Friday in the afternoon, the wrap up by Safiso of IQ Business Group. He's the chief economist at IQ Business. And please join if you haven't seen it, if you haven't watched the wrap up, please do this Friday, because quite honestly, I think you'll be there every Friday at 3. His work is insightful, and the webinars are incredible. So thanks to the panelists, thanks to Colin and Stephen once again, and hopefully we're going to see you again on the show. We'll certainly try and get you back. But thanks to everybody. Thanks for a fantastic webinar. Cheers, guys.
Thanks,